Remember New Girl? New Girl was one of the most highly regarded sitcoms of the last decade. The show portrays quirky, fun-loving characters who are just trying to make it through life, all while forming unbreakable bonds. But is that all the show is really about? Maybe not. Is there a more sinister side to the adorable main character Jessica Day and her band of misfits? Maybe. One of the things that made the show so popular in its time was its script. The writing was funny, topical, and it appealed to people of all ages. It was really unique in that way, and the show had some really meaningful moments too, like when Cece came back from her mountain trip and confessed her love to Schmidt, or when Nick said I love you for the first time, and they worked it out with the help of Prince. These wacky misadventures the characters get into is what made the show so attractive. But what if there was something more dubious drawing people to the show? You'll notice that in some parts of the script, there are these weird moments of communication. I'll show you a few examples of what I mean, and you can form your own conclusions. But the evidence I'm going to provide is very compelling. So if we look here, Season 1, Episode 1. Let's look at the show. So we have this one exchange between Schmidt and Cece where he tries to dress up as Mitt Romney and it doesn't go well and he gets caught. And he's telling Cece how he feels about it. But she seems to understand him without needing to know what he says. So they're talking about Winston's weird relationship. It's not going well. Winston is fantasizing about Cece. All strange. But you see how Schmidt knew what Winston was thinking without Winston having to say anything. What do you call that? We can't understand what people are thinking without them telling us. Unless you have some sort of technological communication device that allows you to communicate telepathically with other people. New Girl is propaganda for this telepathy communication device. The whole show was just fabricated as a front, advertising for big companies early in the trial phase of these products. And now that they've been finalized, Mark Zuckerberg has released them. All of these corporations that want to control our minds. The show was all just propaganda, advertising for this technology. The show begins with this propaganda. So if we go to the first episode of Season 1, right here, where Jess is getting ready for her date. She falls off her heels. So goofy. She's talking about what if it's horrible, what if she has nothing to talk about. She's like, I shouldn't go. Cece says, babe, you got hurt. That doesn't mean you stopped trying. Nowhere does Jess say, I got hurt and I'm afraid to go on a date. You know, how does Cece know that? How does Cece interpret that? And one could argue that, oh, the writers know, because this is in fact a fake show, but no, I don't think that's it. These would be very encouraging words if not coming from a minx of the corporate elite. So he's talking to her, and he says he's gonna miss being a Romney. Who wouldn't? I love the Romneys. Look, he says, my dad left when I was 8, okay? And then he went and had 3 kids with his new wife. And me and my mom were just these 2 weirdos who belong to nobody. And they also have homosexual propaganda in here as well. It's honestly deplorable. And then Cece said, find a way to forgive him for not being a presidential candidate with great hair. At what point did Schmidt say, I do not forgive my dad? He didn't. He didn't. That's the whole thing. He never said, I don't forgive my dad. How did Cece know that he was thinking that? How did Cece know that? What is it? Intuition? Body language? Body language? We all know that body language is a farce put forward by new wave feminists to try and accuse more men of sexual assault and rape. There is no such thing. So how did she know? Unless she could read his mind. New Girl is propaganda. They're propaganda for telepathy technology developed by Facebook. It's obvious. Look at the script. Read the script. They're talking to each other and it's almost as if they can read each other's minds. It's not a coincidence, people. Why do you think Mark Zuckerberg just changed Facebook's name to Meta? Metaphysical. Because they're reading our minds. The technology has been developed. Companies can now read into our minds again to what we think, what we know, what we're hiding from them. All our personal private information is going to be out in the metaverse, which is a platform for only big companies and corporations like Big Pharma to use to vaccinate our kids and get our DNA and try and use it to do genetic testing. I'll give you one last example to really drive the point home. Season 1, episode 4. Jess walks in on Nick naked, and eventually they have to talk about it. Nick, I believe, is one of the biggest instruments of propaganda on this show. The whole thing about Nick is that he doesn't communicate his feelings. And yet people seem to know how he feels. You know, he very often says there's nothing to talk about, or he doesn't want to talk about things. But is it because he's afraid of feelings? Or is it something else? Let's look at this last example. This is from season 1, episode 4. Naked. Jess walks in on Nick naked. And Jess eventually tries to confront Nick about it. So, Jess follows Nick into the elevator. And he says, "Why did you laugh at my penis?" And she's describing it positively. And then she just moves on to another topic. She says, "I think it's great you dance naked to Jamaican music." It doesn't have to do with the fact that she laughed at his penis, but the way this conversation goes suggests to us that there's communication missing. There might be mental communication. Several times, Nick says throughout this episode, there's nothing to talk about. And the audience may be fooled into thinking that Nick is just a guy who avoids verbal communication, but that's not true. Nick is one of the biggest proponents for this technology on the show. I mean, that's a fact. You know, Nick is painted as this guy who avoids communication and never talks about his feelings, but it's because he doesn't have to. He's most tuned in with the telepathy communication. When he says there's nothing to talk about, it means because they don't have to talk. They can understand each other through the telepathy technology. That's why they don't need to talk about anything, because they're talking up here. And so, with all of this overwhelming evidence in place, my question is, how did we as a society sit by and let ourselves be shepherded by these big corporations? The show ended in 2018 after a rocky bout with the network and an almost cancellation after season 6. Elon Musk's company Neuralink was launched in 2016. Coincidental timing for New Girl to end only a year and a half after Neuralink was launched. Seems pretty convenient, don't you think? Neuralink is Elon Musk's company that explores brain-computer interactions, or at least that's what they say. But cable television, Big Pharma, and Jeff Bezos have pulled the wool over our eyes for too long. I cannot in good conscience sit with this information and not disperse it to my loyal viewers. By the way, guys, I'm partnering with OBS for the holiday seasons. Don't have a green screen? Don't have a chroma key studio? No problem. You can use completely open source, downloadable, free software to create a green screen right from your home. And that's how I'm doing it, with the help of OBS. If you go online to www.obs.com/newgirlisafarce, you get 25% off SWB's audio software for Mac and iOS users for all of your audio-related green screen recording needs. Anyway, you guys, that's the conspiracy theory of the week. Leave a comment below if you liked it. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, Reddit, and Discord as Real World Real News Girl. And if you like these videos and you want to see more and help me with filming costs, you can donate to my Patreon at Real World Real News Girl. All of these will be linked below in the description. Remember, guys, don't forget to subscribe. Give me suggestions for other likely true conspiracy theories that you want me to go over. All right, keep an eye out.